Hey guys, welcome to BudgetEDH. On this week's episode, we bring you Feather the Redeemed from War of the Spark. If you're new to our channel and want to continue seeing Budget Commander content, please take a minute to hit the subscribe button and hit the bell notification icon, and it will notify you of any episodes that we create in the future. All prices in this video are sponsored by TCG Player. If you use the link in the description below to buy singles, accessories, or the deck in this video, it'll help support our channel and help us create future content. Another way that you can support our channel directly is by becoming a patron over at patreon.com/budgetedh. There's a link down below in the description, and for as little as $1 per month, you'll have access to enter into all of our giveaways, including giveaways for decks that we create from deck techs, merch, and sponsored product. We also have tiers where you can help collaborate with us to create a deck, and we will create a video specifically for you and your deck and send you the deck. Check us out on Patreon. Feather the Redeemed is red, white, white for a legendary creature angel out of War of the Spark. She has flying, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets a creature you control, exile that card instead of putting it into your graveyard as it resolves. If you do, return it to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. With Feather, we are looking to play a Voltron strategy with her. Instants and sorcery spells that target Feather or your other creatures are powerful, especially ones that have a built-in card advantage to them, like drawing a card or scrying. We do have a token subtheme in this deck, which will create tokens whenever you cast a non-creature spell. This deck is very spell heavy. And then we do have what I'd like to call spell pingers in this deck, which are creatures that ping your opponents whenever you play a spell. So we included all of those in here as another sub-strategy. The strengths of this deck is there's a lot of value generation, which is something you don't usually see out of Boros. Since you're able to get your instants and sorceries back when you target one of your creatures, it is very powerful, and any card that has a effect plus draw a card when you target is very powerful in this deck. There's a lot of protection built in with Feather. There's a lot of instants and sorceries that give your creatures protection. And we do have a go wide strategy built in with our tokens. The weaknesses of this deck is it's very reliant on attacking, so propaganda type effects are powerful against us. Any sacrifice effects are very strong, so Marin would be a commander that would be tough to play against. And then board wipes are really strong against Feather as well. The price of this deck is $104 on TCG Player. Let's start out this deck tech with all of the abilities that you're able to use to pump your Feather up for Voltron. So first up, we have Balduvian Rage. X and a red for an instant. Target attacking creature gets +X+0 until end of turn, and then draw a card at the beginning of your next turn's upkeep. This card is very good because it does have a draw attached to the spell. So with Feather, anytime you have an additional ability to draw a card or scry attached to an instant or sorcery that targets one of your creatures, it's very strong because you're able to get the instant and sorcery back with Feather's ability and the card that you drew. You're able to get some card advantage, something that is lacking in Boros until now. And then we have Blazing Shoal. X red for an instant. You may remove a red card with converted mana cost X in your hand from the game rather than pay Blazing Shoal's mana cost. Target creature gets +X+0 until end of turn. And then we have Rush of Blood. 2 and a red for an instant. Target creature gets +X+0 until end of turn, where X is its power. And then we have Invigorated Rampage. 1 and a red for an instant. Choose one. Target creature gets +4/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. And 2 target creatures each get +2/+0 and gain trample until end of turn. This card's nice because it gives you a little flexibility if you have more than one creature on the battlefield. And then we have Martial Glory. Red and a white for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn. And target creature gets +0/+3 until end of turn. You can use these on different creatures, so that is one thing of note. And then we have Run Amok. 1 and a red for an instant. Target attacking creature gets +3/+3 and gains trample until end of turn. And then we have Borrowed Hostility. 1 red for an instant. Escalate 3. You can pay this cost for each mode chosen beyond the first. Choose one or both. Target creature gets +3/+0 until end of turn, and target creature gains first strike until end of turn. And then we have Sure Strike. 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn. And then we have Rally the Righteous. 1 red, white for an instant. and it has Radiance. Untap target creature and each other creature that shares a color with it. Those creatures get +2/+0 until end of turn. This card's really strong with your token subtheme. You are able to target your feather with this spell, and then it will pump up all your tokens since every token in this deck is either red or white. And then we have Rush of Adrenaline. 1 red for an instant. Target creature gets +2/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. And then we have Defiant Strike. 1 white for an instant. Target creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn, and then draw a card. This spell is not very powerful in that it only gives you +1/+0, but having the draw a card attached to it makes it very good with Feather on the battlefield. This is basically 1 white to draw a card, which is strong in this deck. And then we have Titan Strength. 1 red for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+1 until end of turn, and then you can scry 1. We included a few ways in this deck to give your creatures haste, and all of these spells also have the extra ability of gaining you some additional value in that you can draw a card or scry 1 whenever you use them. So Expedite, Crimson Wisp, and Accelerate all do the same thing in that they give your creature haste. And then Samut's Sprint gives your creature +2/+1 and haste until end of turn, and that one has a scry attached to it. Giving our creatures double strike is very powerful when we're trying to kill them in one hit. So we have 3 spells in here that give Feather or your creatures double strike. The first one is the most powerful one, and that's Psychotic Fury, and it's 1 and a red for an instant. And target multicolored creature gains double strike until end of turn, and then you can draw a card. It is the most powerful because of the draw a card ability. Temur Battle Rage does the same thing, except you don't draw a card. If you have a creature that has power 4 or greater, it will give that creature trample. And then Uncaged Fury costs 2 and a red, and it gives your creature +1/+1, and it gains double strike until end of turn. Protecting your feather is really important in this deck. And since we are playing a spell-heavy strategy, we included a bunch of instant spells that protect your feather and other creatures that you have on the battlefield. So first up, we have Apostle's Blessing. 1 in a Phyrexian white mana. Target artifact or creature you control gains protection from artifacts or from the color of your choice until end of turn. And then we have Shelter. 1 in a white for an instant. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, and then you can draw a card. And Adamant Will gives your creature +2/+2, and it gains indestructible until end of turn. Then there's Sheltering Light, which also gives your creature indestructible, and you can scry 1 with it. And Bathe in Light is an instant that has Radiance, and you can choose a color. And target creature and each other creature that shares a color with it gains protection from the chosen color until end of turn. Then there's God's Willing. 1 white for an instant. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, and then you can scry 1. Seize the Day is a way to take an extra combat by targeting one of your creatures. And with Feather out, you are able to get this card back to take additional combats each turn, which with a Voltron strategy will gain you a lot of value. So Seize the Day is 3 in a red for a sorcery. Untap target creature. After this main phase, there is an additional combat phase followed by an additional main phase. And you do have the ability to flash it back for 2 in a red, which means you can cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost. With your Feather out, you'll just get it back to your hand anyway, so the flashback isn't that important. But this card, being able to take additional combats each turn, is very powerful in this deck, especially since you are playing a Voltron strategy. The most powerful card by far in this deck is Sunforger. Sunforger is 3 colorless for an artifact equipment, and it says equipped creature gets +4/+0, and it has the ability that you can pay a red and a white to unattach Sunforger, search your library for a red or white instant card with converted mana cost 4 or less, and cast that card without paying its mana cost, then shuffle your library. This card is extremely powerful because you do have so many spells in your deck that you're able to tutor up with your Sunforger to get so much value over the course of the game, and you're able to use it as a toolbox to get any spell that you might need for any situation. Board wipes in this deck actually go against our strategy in that they're very powerful against our deck, but we did include a couple of board wipes that work well with Feather in Chandra's Ignition and Fell the Mighty. So Chandra's Ignition is 3 red for a sorcery. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to each other creature and each opponent. So not only is this going to get returned to your hand since it does target a creature, you can also deal some extra damage to your opponent, and it is a one-sided board wipe if you target Feather. And then we have Fell the Mighty, 4 and a white for a sorcery. Destroy all creatures with power greater than target creature's power. Again, this is a one-sided board wipe, so it is worth including in this deck. Token degeneration works really well with this deck, as there are several creatures that give you a token when you cast a non-creature spell, or when you target one of your creatures with a spell. So first up, we have Young Pyromancer, 1 and a red. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/1 red elemental creature token. And then we have Akroan Crusader and Vanguard of Brimaz, and they both have heroic. Whenever you cast a spell that targets them, you create a 1/1 token. Then there's a very strong card in this deck, which is Launch the Fleet. 1 white for a sorcery that has Strive. Launch the Fleet costs 1 more to cast for each target beyond the first. Until end of turn, any number of target creatures gain. Whenever this creature attacks, put a 1/1 white soldier creature token onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. This is a great repeatable way to make a bunch of tokens in this deck. I want to call out a card that has a lot of utility in this deck, and it is Mentor of the Meek. And Mentor of the Meek is 2 and a white for a creature. Whenever another creature with power 2 or less enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. One thing to note here is it doesn't say non-token creature, so if a token enters the battlefield under your control, you can still use Mentor of the Meek's ability. This is really strong since we are playing a lot of token generators. And card draw in Boros is pretty lackluster, so having this creature in here to draw you some cards over the course of the game will help you generate some value. There are 2 creatures in this deck that have a lot of synergy with Feather, and they are Mirrorwing Dragon and Zada. They both have the same ability that whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell that targets Mirrorwing Dragon or Zada, you copy that spell for each other creature you control that the spell could target, and each copy targets a different one of those creatures. So with this out, if you have your Feather and a bunch of tokens, for example, and you cast a pump spell on your Feather, it's going to copy that spell on all of your tokens. And if that has a draw ability attached to that spell, you are going to draw a card for each one of those copied spells. And with Feather, you are going to get that spell back at the end of the turn too. So this can keep going on. These creatures are very powerful in this deck and definitely worth the inclusion. Since we have a lot of non-creature spells in this deck, we did include some creatures that allow us to ping our opponents as we cast instant or sorcery spells. So first up, we have Gutter Snipe, 2 and a red for a creature. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. And then Electrostatic Field and Firebrand Archer do the exact same thing. And whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, they deal 1 damage to each opponent. This is a good way to get some extra damage in throughout the game, and it does deal damage to all your opponents, and you have a lot of spells in this deck. I want to call out a combo that works with Path to Exile, Feather, and Young Pyromancer. So with your Feather out on the battlefield and Young Pyromancer out on the battlefield, if you cast Path to Exile on one of your elemental tokens made by a Young Pyromancer, you are able to search your library for a land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. And then the Young Pyromancer is going to create another token when you do cast the Path to Exile. With Feather out, this is going to let you return the Path to Exile to your hand at the beginning of your end step. So this is a way to get some ramp in a color combination that typically does not allow for much ramp. Next up, there are 2 cards that provide a way to deal direct damage to your opponent and are repeatable with Feather's ability. So first up, we have Rolling Thunder, X red for a sorcery. Rolling Thunder deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. Now the way this would work is that you would target 1 damage towards your Feather, and then you would target the rest at any other of your opponent's targets. And at the end of the turn, you will get your Rolling Thunder back since it did target your Feather. And then we have Aurelia's Fury, X red for an instant. Aurelia's Fury deals X damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or players. Tap each creature dealt damage this way. Players dealt damage this way can't cast non-creature spells this turn. This would work the same way as Rolling Thunder in that you would choose to deal at least 1 damage to one of your creatures, so you're able to get Aurelia's Fury back at your end step. And this has a way of making it to where your opponents can't cast non-creature spells. This does have the added benefit of making it where your opponents can't cast non-creature spells in a turn. There are a couple of cards in this deck that allow you to deal double damage in a turn, and these are Overblaze and Insult to Injury. So Overblaze is 3 and a red for an instant, and each time target permanent would deal damage to a creature or player this turn, it deals double that damage to that creature or player instead. Now this does target, so if you have your feather out and you target one of your creatures, you will get this back at the end of your end step. And then there's Insult to Injury. An insult is 2 and a red for a sorcery. Damage can't be prevented this turn. If a source you control would deal damage this turn, it deals double the damage instead. So this doesn't target, but it will double all of the damage that's dealt this turn. So if you swing in with a bunch of tokens, it'll double all those as well. And then there's Injury, 2 and a red for a sorcery, and it has Aftermath. So you can cast this spell only from your graveyard, and then you exile it. Injury deals 2 damage to target creature and 2 damage to target player. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch our video today. If you haven't already, subscribe to our YouTube channel and check us out on social media on Facebook, Twitter, or Reddit. We'll see you next time.